Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's workshop. We're having today an online workshop, the second in a row, in fact, on security. And this workshop will be talking about standardization synergies between civil security, defense, and the space industries. My name is Els, and I will be moderating the webinar today. You are all muted by default, so you do not have the possibility to ask your questions out loud, but we do suggest that you use the Q&A panel to enter your questions in the webinar. The speakers will try to have a regular look on the Q&A panel and reply your questions. In any case, after all presentations, we intend to have a small Q&A session where we intend to reply as many of your questions as possible. Should your question remain unreplied, please don't worry, because we intend to make a Q&A report available via the CENELEC website. We are recording this webinar. The recording will be shared with you afterwards, as well as the presentation that will be shown today. Should you be on Twitter, please feel free to talk about this. We have a dedicated hashtag training for standards, and CEN and CENELEC are available at Standards for EU. So without further ado, I would like to hand over the floor to Mr. Perty Watch, who is the chairperson of the CEN-CENELEC Sector Forum on Security. Please, Perty, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Els. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the webinar or workshop addressing standardization synergies between civil security, defense and space industries, which is organized by the CEN-CENELEC Sector Forum on Security, and as Els mentioned, as part of a series of events promoting standardization of security-related topics. My name is Pertti Wojcik. I come from Finland, and I am the chairperson of the mentioned Sector Forum, which will be introduced later by my colleague. The motivation for this webinar is a communication of the European Commission called the Action Plan on Synergy between Civil, Defense and Space Industries that was published a year ago. In this webinar, we will have 3 speakers, each presenting their point of view about this topic, the action plan. And firstly, Mrs. Nienke Tichelaar from the Directorate General Defense Industry and Space of the European Commission in Brussels will present the mentioned action plan and the Commission's strategy on standardization. Secondly, Mr. Toni Leikas from Environics, an SME from Mikkeli, Finland, will present a view of the industry through practical examples of how the company is using civilian and military standards side by side. Thirdly, I myself will present the position of CEN-CENELEC to the action plan, highlighting the main contributions of the standardization domain to the implementation of the plan. After these 3 presentations, there will be time for questions and answers and discussion about this interesting topic. But before starting the presentations themselves, Mrs. Christina Thorngreen from the CEN-CENELEC Management Center in Brussels will give you an overview of CEN-CENELEC and the Sector Forum on Security. Christina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pertti. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christina Thorngreen. I'm a project manager at the CEN and CENELEC Management Center, where I follow the security sector. And I just want to say a few words about CEN and CENELEC particularly, and the Sector Forum on Security. So CEN, the European Committee for Standardization, and CENELEC, the European Committee for Electrotechnical Standardization, together with ETSI, the European Telecommunication Standards Institute, are the 3 recognized European standardization organizations recognized by EU law. And CEN and CENELEC are in fact made up of 34 national members, which are the national standardization bodies and national committees, which you can see here on the left. Then at the European or regional level, we have CEN, CENELEC and ETSI. And CEN has, for example, a technical cooperation agreement together with ISO at the international level. And then CENELEC has a cooperation agreement with IEC, the International Electrotechnical Committee. And the same goes for ETSI and ITU. And so the aim is, in fact, to, of course, rationalize the resources that we use at European and international level. And whenever there is a standardization initiative at the international level, then the work at the European level ceases, as the ultimate aim is to seek for a global solution, a global standard if possible. But there's a very strong cooperation between European and international level. A few words about CEN and CENELEC deliverables. So we have the European standard, which is the prime deliverable, which takes about 2 years to develop and is also revised every 5 years. And by contrast to an international standard, a European standard will, once adopted, will replace all 34 national standards. So this contributes to harmonization of the European market. Then we have technical specifications, which are pre-standard. These are a good deliverable to use when perhaps there's still lacking enough consensus to develop a European standard. Then we have technical reports, which are in fact informative documents or guides. They also can represent a snapshot of the state of the art on any given topic. And then finally, we have the CEN and/or CENELEC workshop agreement. This is a document that's developed by a group of individuals or organizations and is a non-normative document, which is valid for up to 6 years, but can be developed quite quickly. So as Pertti mentioned, who is the chair of the CEN and CENELEC Sector Forum on Security, this is the forum which is behind the initiative today to have a workshop. It was established in late 2018, in fact, and was allocated as secretariat to our Finnish member, SFS. And it brings together experts from all over the security industry and is in charge of coordinating security-related standardization. It does not develop standards, but rather coordinates and has liaisons with professional and technical associations. And also, this body reviews different policy initiatives and best practices. So that was my short introduction. I will now hand over to Nienke Tichelaar from the European Commission, more specifically DG DEFIS. Over to you, Nienke.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm trying to put on my video, see if it works. I'm Nienke Tichelaar. I'm the Deputy Head of Unit in DG DEFIS, Defense, Industrial Policy and Internal Market. And I would like to present this morning to you the Commission's action plan on synergies. As you know, the DG DEFIS is quite a new DG department in the Commission. We were set up in 2020 to implement the European Defence Fund, which is a new fund under the EU's multi-annual financial framework. And we also have one part which is on which implements the space program and the space specific program on the Horizon Europe. Actually, what you see in the Commission started in 2009 with to focus on the defense internal market, and it has adopted 2 directives in this respect, the Transfer Directive and the Procurement Directive, together with the co-legislators. Then the Commission implemented a preparatory action on defense research. And now since last year, we are operating also the European Defence Fund, which is an almost 8 billion fund on European defense research and development. Last year in February, we also adopted an action plan on synergies. And the novelty about it is that it's really aimed to break the silos between defense, space, and related civil industries, and to benefit from spin-ins from civil into defense industries. So what we want to ensure is that the European defense industry can draw on the European civil industry research achievements. The defense sector can make full use of emerging and digital technologies developed for civil applications, such as artificial intelligence, microelectronics, data clouds, and robotics, for example. That defense needs are fully plugged into a broader effort on technological sovereignty, and that non-traditional players find their way into the defense supply chains and cross-border cooperation. Now, the action plan on synergies actually announces 11 actions. Some of these are really focused on enhancing synergies and to establish appropriate processes and mechanisms amongst the different EU programs and industries. Of course, taking into account the legal limitations that there are. And we want to assure with that we have more impact in our funding and less duplication. The action plan on synergies also launched a number of flagship projects monitored by the European Commission. For example, on drone technologies, it's the European Drone Strategy, an EU space-based global secure communication systems, which we just have adopted 1.5 weeks ago, and space traffic management flagship. The action plan also seeks to have a number of actions to ensure the cross-fertilisation between space, defence and security sectors. For example, there is an action 2 which seeks to improve the coordination of EU programs and instruments, for example, by blending facilities, using Pathfinder and Accelerator instruments, and foster the synergies between Horizon Europe and other direct or shared management programs, and to facilitate the access to finance. There is a specific action to launch an innovation incubator for dual-use innovations, and as well actions on cross-border defense innovation networks, where we also aim to test the relevance of civil sector technologies in defense. And there's, of course, also the new Cybersecurity Competence Center, which has already been set up. And then there is one action, and I would like to go a bit further into that in a second. Action 5, which is to promote the use of existing hybrid and civil defense standards to exchange best practices and to develop new ones. And last but not least, I would like to mention an action of the action plan on synergies, which is to set up an EU observatory on critical technologies, which we are currently setting up in DG DEFIS with a number of other DGs, and also together with the Commission Joint Research Center to better observe technologies that are critical in the area of defense, security, and space. And what we aim to do is to adopt classified reports, and also on the basis of the findings of this observatory to develop specific technology roadmaps and eventually adopt flagship projects. So the Commission will oversee the implementation of the action plan on synergies and monitor, of course, the progress of listed actions. There will be an annual progress report, and it's led by the Commission Secretary General. But there are many different DGs involved, not only DG DEFIS, which I'm representing, but also DGs like RTD, DG Home, but also, for example, the European Defence Agency is also involved in the successful implementation of the action plan. So let me dive a little bit more into the action 5 on standardization. So what the action plan on synergy says is that by the end of 2022, the Commission, in close collaboration with other key stakeholders, will present a plan to promote the use of existing hybrid civil and defense standards and the development of new ones. Now, a number of Commission services are involved in this implementation, notably DG Home, DG Grow, and of course DG DEFIS. And DG Grow is very important because it plays a key role in the wider standardization efforts in the Commission. And actually a key vehicle to implement the Action 5 of the Action Plan on Synergies, one second, is the European Strategy on Standardization. So this strategy proposes a set of actions to strengthen the global role of the European standardization system, and thus enables a twin green and digital transition and supports the resilience of the internal market. And the strategy has just been adopted, and I'm sure that you have another occasion to discuss the strategy also with our colleagues in DG GROW, if you haven't done yet so. It outlines a number of standardization urgencies, and it focuses on the need to regain and retain the first mover advantage in new and emerging technologies, which of course is also an area that is particularly important for DG DEFIS. And it is important because the innovation in those technologies come increasingly from the civil sector and drives the defense sector. Therefore, our ambition is to open a possibility to include defense requirements where possible in the process of developing civil standards supported by the Commission, and to make them more responsive to defense needs. As you know, already now around 80% of standards used in the military is coming from the civil sector. And our ambition is to make further future standards even better geared towards defense needs, thus reducing the defense sector effort to develop separate set of standards dedicated only for military end users. So therefore, we wish to include in the EU Excellence Hub on Standards, which is set up through the standardization strategy, some actors that can bring in expertise from the defense sectors, including the European Defense Agencies. So this approach will enable us to implement the main objective of the Action Plan on Synergies and on hybrid standards, according to also the new definition developed by the European Defense Agencies in coordination with the Commission, where hybrid standards are understood as civil standards used in security and defense applications and contexts. And the role of DG DEFIS is mostly that of a facilitator, because as I said, DG DEFIS is responsible for implementing the European Defence Fund. And through the European Defence Fund, we can identify defense user needs, because the governance of the European Defence Fund includes a so-called program committee, which consists of member states, but also of the European Defence Agency, where we will ask member states to identify relevant standards, civil or military ones, that could be addressed by the industries in submitted proposals on R&D. And it's also up to the member states to inform us whether there's a need to develop a new standard as part of a targeted activity that is eligible for an EU grant. And also, since the beneficiaries of the European Defence Fund, which are consortia of legal entities, they own the end result of research actions supported by the European Defence Fund, DG DEFIS could also encourage the consortium to make the results publicly available, for example, by publishing in EDSTAR database, and inform other stakeholders. So this is my short wrap-up of the Action Plan on Synergies and DG's roles in it, and how also the action on standards, how we intend to follow that through. And as you know, DG DEFIS is of course not a standardization body, but we want to facilitate and make sure that the standardization strategy of the Commission also duly considers defense needs. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel, but we really want to help to further enhance the process of making sure that we can develop such hybrid standards. This was my short introduction. I will give the floor to the next speaker, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to respond to them. Thank you.
All right, Tony, you can go on.
Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this workshop on my behalf. I'm Tony Leikas from a CBRNE specialized company called Aeronix. A few words about me. So I have been taking part of this CBRNE area standardizations about 10 years. In working in SFS, we are a committee of society security and also sent DC 391, Societal Security Work Group 2, CBRNE, as an expert and also as a convener. I have also working group leader from the first European level EN standard, CBRNE. And today I'm giving you a short example of how the different industry use standards, both civil, military, and what are the synergies. So in this first European CBRNE standard scope, talking about CBRNE languages, we can change the CBRNE to meet a normal standardizations language between civil, defense, research, policymaker, and user citizens. If we don't have the same language, definitions, and common understanding, we are rounding the same circle over again without any success. We have to put together all the levels and silos requirements, standards, guidance, etc., to see what is really common for all and how we can use these together without overlap and redundancy. We all have to lower the fields and to see what the opposite side is providing and what we can learn from them. There is no time anymore for battles with the civil and defense actors. Both sides are making important work for harmonization and standardization. Although, how we can use those together without increasing all of us work. For example, defense industry duplication works automatically rise the prices of products and services. Next slide, please.
Tony, apologies. Yeah,
yes.
Just to let you know, we hear you quite quietly. So if you could either speak more loudly or into your mic. Thank you.
I think the microphone is a bit far away from your face.
Okay, so can you hear me now better?
Yes.
Okay. Now I want to shortly give you one example of use the standards in one small SME level defense and security industry company, which is specialized in CBRNE area manufacturing for chemical, biological, and radiological detectors, analyzers, solutions for military, navy, first responders, hospitals, customer, etc.
Sorry, Tony, your voice is almost muted. So
I don't know what is.
Can you do something, please?
Perhaps try without the headphones.
Yeah, there's no. Let's see. Do you hear me now better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I will give you examples how our company, Aeronix, from Finland, are using different type of standardizations. So we are following the both civil and military quality management systems, so ISO 9001 and NATO AQAP 2110. So the credible and development company has to adhere to many different quality and management control systems and reference standards. Like I say, just as the ISO and AQAP. To follow this is not just a matter of announcement, but of extensive and long-term development work to get certificate. Management systems of Aeronix consist also environmental, health and safety and security standards requirements from ISO 14001, We have also fulfilled different reference standards on the individual process, such as ISO 10012 for measurement process and measurement equipment, ISO 10007 for configuration management, and ISO 31000 for risk management. Not forgetting applicable requirements of national and international laws and regulations have to follow and meet, like dual-use device export control and national cybersecurity requirements. So summa summarum, you have to have a quality systems, take part of the tenders, and to be a reliable supplier. Next slide, please. So here you can see a list of many standards. So for designing and manufacturing devices and systems for demanding environment for defense and security users have own specific standards and regulations to follow. Of course, if you want to be a part of the defense market, the device has to be a complete standard and have to be tested against these standards. For example, detectors for military users have to design and test it for environmental standards, meaning that the device can be used in the rain, extreme temperatures, different air pressures, sand, dust storms, vibrations, rubbing, and acidic atmosphere. For this, the military standard is 801T. For military products, for explosive atmosphere, military standard 810G's methods and procedures. But if you want to have also civilian classification for these environmental requirements, it needed to have other explanation that will stand 810GCHG1 to understand easily what is the classification level. For this standard is IEC 60529, degrees of protection provided by explosives. It's better known as IP classification, giving example guidance for IP67. Electronic devices, electromagnetic emission also meet and tested by military standard 461G. Also, if you want to have devices using military vehicles, the product have to be meet military standard 1275T. Our handheld chemical detector called ChemPro-X, which is the next generation state-of-the-art detector, has built and also have inbuilt the wireless communication method. For this, it has to meet EU Radio Equipment Directive from year 2014 with various EN standards like EN 61061 or EN 3000, 3001, 3003, and EN 50581, etc., etc. So many civilian standards for past. So these are some overall requirements and standards to follow to manufacture handheld detector. There is more standard and harmonized documents and guidance to follow for detector performance for components manufacturing. For military side, there is military detection limits and agent list requirements, mostly by NATO. Civil sector had also specific list for agents and some agent alarm limits, and these mostly based on this kind of IDLA's further requirements. For civil and military naval CBRNE capability and performance have common and for both side guidance. This is IECS naval classification. This document has recommendation for detector types, for chemical, biological, radiological, and also the devices and the number of the devices and the location. There is also many other standards and guidance for manufacturing, for radiation and biological detections and identification devices and systems. Not forgetting software standards for colors, markings, symbols, security, and also the human factors. These have to use and to be balanced between civilian defense standards, and also to see the synergies between these standards. Next slide, please.
Tony, could you stay close to your microphone and preferably to the right of your laptop? That seems to help.
Okay.
That's a good position now.
Okay, good. It is in many cases increasingly difficult to draw a clear line between the civilian defense industry and research, particularly of the basic technology. They both use the same components, but for different applications. And when we're talking about the civil side, in this content, it's not talking about the household cities and technologies, which has become even more and more cheaper and driven by globalizations of knowledge, and also they get access wider public. In this content, the civil side is more about civil side security and safety application and operators, which have a more demanding requirements than normal civilians. In normal defense, requirements are mostly stricter, but of course, some civil requirements and standards are even more strictly to occupational safety issues. If the product wanted to be used in the military, they use different requirements, and it may fit in the civil sector requirements. It is not easy and black or white to foster standardization for hybrid civil and defense standard. The line between the defense products and civil side is quite high at the moment. Many civil products can be used as in the cost, the military side, but without military approval and durability. But not all products does not need all the time the military grade products. As we all know, military grade and green color also rises the prices. There should be a clear targets and area where this common standardization may work. And this is a great goal to achieve. We have to be open-minded and open table to help to start the work, find out the synergies. We in the defense security industry face many challenges and constraints, including the regulation hurdles, lack of level playing fields in the international markets, access to costly research and testing infrastructure. We also need the specialized skills, also the access critical materials or components. And of course, we need to have a European standard and certifications for the products and services. And of course, we complete with the specific export control for defense and dual use items. The common understanding language helped to enhance the EU industry competitiveness, like in the one of the EU flagship project, which have potential become a game changer, the drone technologies. This need to push the innovations and the cross-fertilisation between the civil defense and industries and various innovation programs, but not only like in basic drones, but also payload and application of using. The common standard and language across sectors can contribute the cost savings in terms of production runs and cost management, but also improve operational effectiveness by enhancing interoperability, particularly in a multinational environment. Thank you for all your time and this opportunity to give a short examples how to use the civilian and military and defense standards and requirements in the defense industry. And thank you for you. And I think now it's time to handle the stage for Mr. Voigt.
Okay, thank you, Tony. We should now be, yes, here. Great. Can I have the next slide, please? Good. So we have heard now the point of view of the Commission, the idea why this action plan has been created, what is the purpose of it. We have heard the opinions of the end users, in this case meaning the industry, the defense and security industry. And in the next few, with the next few slides, I will try to explain to you the position of CENELEC as one of the or two of the European standards organizations. So how the CENELEC can help and support the Commission in implementing the action plan, especially, of course, related to the topic of standardization. Can I have the next slide, please? So I've tried to pick a few pieces from a position paper published by CENELEC a few months ago, which kind of explains the stand of the organizations towards this document, and to explain what kind of contribution, what kind of opportunities, or what kind of capabilities the CENELEC do have for this work. And firstly, let's talk about hybrid standards. There are some questions even on this in the Q&A, as I can see. As the background, so there is European Defence Standards Reference System, which is called the EDSTAR, which is managed by the European Defence Agency, and it's a public database of standards, best practices, specifications for defense purposes, containing lists of standards and similar documents that could be the best practices in defense operations. And CENELEC have been having a communication and discussion with the European Defence Agency, and there is a partnership agreement signed between CENELEC from one side and the EDA from the other side, so that CENELEC supports EDA in the selection of standards and other standard-like documents that will be then added to the list and presented in the EDSTAR system. Actually, a large number of civilian standards which are now already in EDSTAR originate from CENELEC. So various technical committees of this European Standards Organization. I think this is a very good indication that the concept of hybrid civil defense standards is already there. It's a reality. There are a lot of standards which can find application in civilian world, in the defense world, and so on. And the development of hybrid standards will continue. Of course, we expect to hear from the Commission, hoping that the Commission will order some standards to be produced, and to see if for example, some harmonized standards could be produced here. The next slide, please. The action plan for synergies by the Commission contains a section which is called critical technologies. There is a list of critical technologies which are relevant across the civilian, including security and defense, and space domains, so that industries operating in these areas are creating these critical technologies and using them. If you look at the list, I hope you have seen this document already. If you look at the list, so in every sector mentioned in this list, I mean sector of technologies, CENELEC already have ongoing standardization activities in place. That means that there are technical committees who are committed to produce standards exactly for these purposes, to enable, to develop, to manage the critical technologies. Of course, there is a lot of things that could still be added there, and I'm sure that all sides will do their best to find such opportunities. Another thing is that CENELEC, additionally to their own operations, so have good and close collaboration links with the international partners, ISO, IEC, which makes this kind of it enlarges the list of relevant activities. This includes, of course, also operation standardization actions that are are done together by the international and European organizations. Next slide, please. Cross-fertilisation opportunities were mentioned by Ninke in her speech in the beginning of this webinar. We have taken here two examples of areas where cross-fertilisation is probably the most promising. These two critical technology areas, cybersecurity, cyber defense, and from the one hand, and the artificial intelligence from the other hand. And the CEN and CENELEC committees that address these areas are collaborating with other technical committees, which then represent several vertical areas. I give here an example from the transport domain, where there is a working group addressing IT security and cyber security in the railway sector, this addressing the transport domain. And there are several technical bodies of CEN and CENELEC that already now deal with dual use items related to, say, space systems or drones, just as an example. Can I have the next slide, please? Then let's have a few words about the EU programs and instruments. So the research and innovation projects that are financed by EU programs such as Horizon 2020 and today's Horizon Europe and other instruments, they can collaborate with standardization bodies so that the findings of these projects can be included in the standardization processes. That means that the results of the projects lead to new standards, new standardization documents. And CEN and CENELEC, we actively promote the early consideration of standardization to use these results from the research projects. Also, member organizations of CEN and CENELEC, meaning the national standardization bodies, they actively participate in these projects. And I would like you to notice two research projects with them, which are especially addressing standardization. They are called STAIR for Security, which ended now in last summer, and then Strategy, which is an ongoing project. So if you look at these with your Google or whatever you use, so you can find interesting data about projects that address standardization. One more slide, please. Yeah, the one thing that the standardization bodies can do is to involve all stakeholders in standardization. In the action plan, the Commission highlights that the small and medium-sized enterprises have an important role in innovation. And we're glad to say that in standardization, the participation of all stakeholders, including the SMEs, is facilitated. The principle of openness of standardization, which means that all standardization bodies, committees, working groups, and are open to anyone, and we really do encourage the participation of SMEs, but also the research domain, the policymakers, the practitioners, the defense authorities into the standardization activities. One more slide, which should say any questions or comments. Thank you for your interest and attention. Now we got about 15 minute times for discussion, and I think what we can do now is to start looking at the questions and answers, and I will now address these in the order as they are posed here. So Nikolaus Mirion is asking if there are any actions taken by CENELEC to activate Sector Forum on Defense. If I understand this correctly, I have not heard of any of that as a say concrete plan. Christina, do you know more about this?
I know that it's something that's been being looked at, but at the moment, this sector forum has not been activated yet. The simple answer, I guess, is that it depends on the willingness of our members to put this together, and so it's under consideration. Is the best I can offer at this point.
Thank you. Maybe I can say a few words more, and especially related to the next question by the same person asking Nikolaus, how the Sector Forum Security Forum coordinates actions on standards used by defense as well. As I said earlier, so quite a lot of the standards which are produced today and the standardization bodies, the technical committees, they do actually work with dual use standards and dual use topics a lot. And maybe we have not discussed that earlier, but maybe one day the Sector Forum on Security could be the Sector Forum on Security, Defense and Space, or just security and defense. So that is, of course, one possibility. But as said, we cannot answer this in detail yet. Hope this answer satisfies you, Nikolaus. Ekaterini Postoli from Greece is asking if there already is established by defense and other synergies DGs a plan for merging and valorizing the European defense standards reference system and the CENELEC ETSI platforms. I think I partially that answered this question already by telling that there is an agreement between CENELEC and the European Defence Agency about supporting the EDGE-STAR. Is here something that Nienke, you might want to add here?
No, I think you gave the answer. What the DEFIS is concerned, the European Defence Agency, you know, through its European Defence Standardisation Committee, is for us really the link, no, in this area, because our main focus is the implementation of European Defence Fund, and the European Defence Agency also sits there in the program committee. So we work very closely with them. So it's really through the standardization committee of the EDA where we really want to implement the policy which I just have explained regarding interacting with civil and defense.
Okay, thank you very much, Nienke. I hope this answers the question of Ekaterini. Evantia Papa is asking if dual use is a way to participate in such actions. The answer is definitely yes, and as we tried to explain, the dual use or standardization of dual use items is already ongoing, and there are several technical committees who address this. Of course, how this will continue and what will be done and how it will be done depends on the actions of the Commission, how the Commission is starting to implement these actions which are listed in the action plan. For example, if there will be, if more and more this kind of capability-driven approach will be more and more applied also in the civilian security, so that might have an effect also on the standardization, so that maybe we would then see technical committees who are addressing capabilities instead of technologies or products. I couldn't say, but that sounds quite interesting. So I think that's that. Mr. Alexandre Colombier is asking, what is the view of CEN on EDGE-STAR database maintained by EDA to list standards? I think I answered that. There is a cooperation on that, which is based on an agreement between the organizations. One more question from Nicholas Miriunis. Is there a plan to bring all defense and security stakeholders in the same roundtable? This question, I think, is more for the Commission, because they seem yeah, well, not really. The truth is that the idea of the sector forum is security is exactly what you are asking here. So to bring the stakeholders that are participating in standardization of security into or around the same table to discuss things that are items that are related to standardization of security related technologies and topics. As I said earlier, so it might be an interesting discussion inside CEN and CENELEC whether the sector forum should be expanded to cover also defense related. So I think that's all we can say at this time. But definitely the Commission is doing this also on several fronts, so to say.
May I compliment here?
Definitely, I was just going to ask you to do.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that the idea of this EU Excellence Hub on standards, which I mentioned in my introduction, is also to bring the relevant expertise there. And as DG Diff is, of course, we're very interested also to bring there the defense related expertise to also make sure that defense considerations are taken up in this overall strategy and prioritization. So I would say that this excellence hub is also meant to cover that.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that answered this question. Our next question is by Sarah Gobbi, who is asking if there are any plans to coordinate with and leverage existing standard at global level produced by, say, organizations that are not part of the so-called, how should I say, more or less official standardization. That means which are consortia of industry, consortia of users. And definitely this is a thing that must never be forgotten, or may never be forgotten, because there are a lot of interesting standards here which must be also taken into account. So I encourage all stakeholders and parties here to remember these. Patrick Besombe, I think, hopefully I pronounced your name correctly, will ask about the sovereignty dimension in standardization. How can we address that? I'm not sure if I understand this question correctly. If sovereignty means here that the standardization bodies are sovereign and independent, so yes, I think it is as it is. So I mean, it is continues also in this sector, but
I can maybe also compliment here, and I also see that one of my space colleagues is online, so maybe he also wants to compliment on sovereignty dimension. It's more related to the overall, I think, standardization strategy of the Commission, where it's put that the Commission wants to be a standard setter, or the Union should be a standard setter, I should say, also for those critical technologies which are important for us. So I would say that this question, I'm not an expert on this standardization strategy as such, but I think this is set out in this in the standardization strategy, and it's also mentioned there as regards governance, that it should be driven by the interest of the Union. But I don't know if any of my space colleagues want to add something in the chat regarding that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Dario Genovese is asking about EU Directive 1148. Is there anybody present who could answer this question? We will answer all questions that we are not able to answer right now. We will answer them later as with written answers that will be delivered to the participants. So I'm sorry, but now at this moment we are not able to answer this question, it seems. Now then, Kjell Bengtsson is asking how well are the ASD, AIA, EN standards involved, similar to NATO STANAG in these processes? I understand that with the ASD standards, you mean the standards related to aviation, produced by the ASD, the Association of now I'm not sure. Is there anyone here present who can answer, any one of the speakers that can answer this question?
Well, I can answer the question partly on the NATO STANAG standards, just by saying that as such, no, as regards the wider standardization strategy, they're not involved. But when we finance the European Defence Fund projects, and when the technical requirements are set up in the program committee of member states, so which means the technical requirements to which the project proposals has to respond to, it can be that specific STANAG standards have to be addressed. Just to name a few examples, we had one preparatory action on defense research, which was basically a small test program on the research side to test the European Defence Fund, which we now put in place. And there we actually had some projects that dealt with standardization, and you can find them on the internet as well. For example, Interact, another project, GOSRA. And there's also then another project called Ocean 2022. And sometimes the follow-up of these projects and the developed standards, for example, in the project called GOSRA, is could be considered by relevant NATO groups. So there is an interaction in the European Defence Fund, because we ask member states also to set the standardization requirements. So there's a link to NATO STANAG, but not directly when it comes to the standardization strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'll answer or pick up one more question before we start ending this webinar, and all the rest will be then answered later as with written answers. Here is another question from Kjell, and he's asking, will CENELEC develop a guideline for this effort to Horizon Europe, EDF and EDA project, as it was done for Horizon 2020, which was excellent. Thank you for that. Glad to hear. Christina, do you know anything about this?
No, that doesn't ring a bell for me.
We will ring some bells in Brussels, and let's see if we can find a good answer to you. If there are no plans, so perhaps there should be. We will check on this and come back. And Jean-François, your question was probably answered at the same time as what Nikke said about said to the previous question of Kjell. Look at the questions and answers. They will be available for you also later on, and there are some invitations to interesting webinars and to interesting websites. And I got 1 minute left, so I use that 1 minute to saying, firstly, thank you very much to the participants who have taken their time to come and participate in our webinar about synergy between civilian and defense and space, standardization. Thank you for that. I hope that this webinar gave you some ideas, or at least woke up some new questions where you can find answers. I thank you very much the speakers, Nikke, Tony, and the organizers, Christina and Els.